Until a couple weeks ago, I feel like universally, the NBA fan base was ready for Anthony Edwards to blossom into the superstar, the next face of the league, or one of the faces of this next generation in the NBA. The talent is obviously there. The athletic ability is obviously there. The mentality, that's the thing that jumps off the page. A lot of guys can jump. A lot of guys can shoot a jump shot and dribble the basketball. The things you say, the way you carry yourself, the way you handle certain situations in a game, outside of the game, it was really easy to tell just from the interviews, just from some of the plays this guy can make, the combination of everything. It makes a lot of sense that Anthony Edwards has this level of anticipation, this level of hype. Going into his third year, he's one of the favorites. I think he might be the favorite to win the Most Improved Player award. And I said a few weeks ago, because whatever this dumb Instagram story thing happened, before that, nobody had any reason to root against this guy. He's coming off playing basically the antagonist, or one of the antagonists, in the Bo Cruz Hustle movie. Great film with Adam Sandler and, of course, Juancho Hernangomez. But this thing, terrible look for a guy that's going to be celebrated. So many NBA fans across the league are ready for this guy to just become the next NBA star. We're damn near locking it in that he's going to be in the All-Star game this year. The season hasn't even started. According to the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're going all in. They make this Rudy Gobert trade, 5 picks into the toilet. I think it's pretty universal that this is a dumb trade for Minnesota. But if they win a title, you can't say anything. If Rudy Gobert really gives them that push that they think he's going to give them, I know a lot of people are always down on Rudy Gobert. It seems like, I can't remember a time in the last 5 years where Rudy Gobert has really been considered as good of a player as his NBA accolades would imply that he is from the NBA fan base. Like, everybody knows this guy is not a top 15 player in the NBA, especially when the games count. So the idea that adding him puts your team, a first-round exit team, over the top, I could see how people are rolling their eyes at that. And on paper, this team's got some really good players, but they're far from the best team in the league. How you're going to coach and run a team like this, it's going to be a science experiment. I've seen some of the ideas where the Timberwolves want to have Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns on the court together at all times, stagger them with D'Angelo Russell and Rudy Gobert on the court at all times, just so Rudy can kind of, receive the ball as a roller and pick and roll more, whereas Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards can kind of trade off being shot creator, isolation type players. And then, of course, you have to have them all on the court, right, to start and finish games. I assume that's going to be the plan, and we're going to see it's going to be a roller coaster ride because things are going to change. It's going to get bumpy. Some shit might work. A lot of shit's not going to work. They're going to figure out the best way to play, but can they do that in time, and can that best way to play be a championship-level basketball team? Well, I don't think so. For AE going into his third year, we haven't seen a great year of mid-range jump shooting ability, and even his three-point percentage isn't great. He takes so many of them, and for the sake of growth, his percentages went up from year 1 to 2, and young players going year 1 to year 2 to year 3 generally will see an incline in these percentages. Growth across the board is what's expected when you're developing a prospect, especially a guy like Anthony Edwards, who the expectations are through the roof. They do think he can be a top 5 player in the league one day. How is he going to grow? How is he going to become the best player on this team? The only way the Timberwolves can win a championship with this team is if he is easily the best player on this team, which I have no doubt in my mind he will be. If it's not next year, probably the year after, should be. If he's not the best player on the team by year 5, something's seriously wrong. But despite how devastating of a player he's been, and that how great we've seen him be in his young career already just through 2 years, there's still so much he can grow on. Start with the mid-range jump shooting because he has not posted an efficient or even close to an efficient season for mid-range so far, but him establishing himself as a true 3-level scorer is going to help him leaps and bounds, not only because it gives him another place to score, but also because those 3-point looks will come easier to him if he's also a threat everywhere else. I feel like most people guarding this guy at this point, you're either worried about a dunk or you're worried about a 3, and even though Ant can hit some of the toughest 3s, step backs, dribble pull-ups, deep shots, spot ups, what have you, sometimes he's a little overzealous. I mean, we've definitely seen him get carried away. Just too many early shot clock contested 3s that doesn't exactly push forward what the team is trying to do as a whole on offense. Kind of stagnates the offense, to be honest. So not only is the mid-range important, but also playmaking. And that has been a focal point for him. That has been his area of development this offseason. I've heard great things about some of the passes that he's able to make and how he's just looking for it more. He really established that as a point of emphasis to key in on. so that he can come back and that really won't be a weakness in his game because let's be honest, Anthony Edwards has not been a very good passer throughout his NBA career. Not only has he not really been looking for the pass, it's just not his thing. He's been a score first, score second player, and that's fine. If that's your role, that's what you exceed in. But if you want to be the best player that you possibly can be, that well-roundedness, that all-around ability is so important, especially as an offensive player. You're going to have to pass the ball. They're going to double team you. If you're too good of a scorer, you'll get double teamed, figure out how to be a playmaker. And Anthony Edwards is already looks like he's doing that. Just looking at this game last night against the Heat, I did see some hot passes he was throwing. Definitely seeing some improvement in that area, and that's huge for him as an offensive player. Not only can he expand that offensive repertoire as a mid-range shooter, as a passer, use that dribble pull-up from inside the arc, 20 feet, 15, 17 feet, whatever. The defense is also incredibly important. Might be one of the weaknesses with this Timberwolves team also is defense on the perimeter. You do have Rudy Gobert to protect the rim, so maybe it's not as important that you don't have a guy like Patrick Beverley anymore who's like your number one backcourt defensive player. Anthony Edwards is slated to take these toughest defensive assignments this year. It's going to be really interesting because it is easier to put up numbers throughout a season if you don't have to guard the first option on the other end. We've seen it time and time again with a lot of these star players. Like, a lot of the best players in our league are capable of guarding the best players in the other team, but it's just better for them to have more energy on offense. Anthony Edwards, he has to be the guy this year, and I was really impressed with him on defense in that Memphis series last year. He was able to switch on anyone, switch on to John Moran at times, and give him some fits. I think he's up for this task, but I do think it could hinder his offensive ability a little bit. Every night he's going to have to be chasing around somebody new, superstar players night in, night out. Can he still go on the other end and drop 25 too? I know that's what he has like guys like Cat 4 and D'Angelo Russell to create offense. So hopefully there's a good balance there that Chris Finch can administer so that Ant doesn't get tired taking 20 shots and then also guarding the other team's best player. But watching Ant, I feel like he is built for that. Any third-year player is up to the task of being the number one guy, guarding the other team's number one guy. It's this guy. This is the type of guy you put your chips on, in general. Unfortunately, I just don't think the team chemistry of this team is going to be good enough by the end of the year, and some trades might have to be made. I don't know if Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the answer there after this new trade for Rudy Gobert. I don't know if that pair is it. I don't think it is at this point, but anything's possible. This team, they can figure it out. They could be deadly, but it's going to be, Chris Finch has got some work to do. Playmaking, more offensive versatility. I know I said mid-range jump shooting before, but also just slashing. I think Anthony Edwards, as long as he is distributing his shots evenly throughout the court so that he really can't be game planned for as an offensive player, that's really what it comes down to. As long as he's not predictable, because we know he can get his shot on anybody. It's just about the shot difficulty. If he's just taking 10 threes a game that are contested, it's just probably not a recipe for success. You want to even it out more so inside the arc. This guy should not be shooting 35% from mid-range. It just shouldn't happen with a guy like this that can get separation, get open looks, off-dribble, pull-up, step-back type shots that you can shoot over people. He should be able to utilize that from 15 feet. And that's what I really want to see. So defense, of course, as well. Not that he's going to be a defensive player of the year or anything, but I don't think he's going to get exposed by star players if he's guarding them. He will be able to hold his own and have some really good defensive games. So I'm really excited for this guy, man. Year 3, future is incredibly bright.